Utah. Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders facing off in a town hall debate last night. Peter Barnes in Washington with the very latest. Peter.
Well, hey, Maria. Bernie Sanders, as you know, has made a big issue out of the $675,000 in speaking fees Hillary Clinton took from Goldman Sachs as proof of her ties to Wall Street. In that New Hampshire town hall meeting last night on CNN, she struggled with questions about the payments.
Look, I made speeches to lots of groups. I told them what I thought. I answered questions.
But did you have to be paid $675,000?
Well, I don't know. That's what they offered. So, you know, every Secretary of State that I know has done that.
Meantime, Donald Trump and Ted Cruz traded insults and accusations in New Hampshire yesterday. Trump charging the Texas senator with fraud in the Iowa caucuses and demanding a do-over. Cruz shooting back that the reality TV star doesn't like the reality of losing and tweeted that he's having a Trumper tantrum. And as you mentioned, Maria, Trump's private jet plane made an emergency landing in Nashville yesterday. Scary moment for the candidate. The FAA says it happened when the pilot reported engine problems. Trump did, though, eventually make it to a rally in Little Rock, Arkansas last night. Back to you.
All right, Peter, thank you so much. Peter Barnes joining us right now is former Newt Gingrich presidential campaign advisor and Spieckerman media president, Lee Spieckerman. Welcome. Good to see you, Lee.
Great to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. So a little worry there with Trump's plane, but he was fine. He landed. He went on to his speech. Give me your take about last night first on the Democratic side and the town hall.
Well, I think really the question that was asked Hillary that she was ill-equipped to answer, which was why was she taking these massive speaking fees
from
Wall Street, really tells the story. I mean, frankly, she's a Wall Street tool. And it began with her husband and Robert Rubin, who's a very smart guy who began the whole Wall Street deregulation. And she's a creature of Wall Street. And of course, they believe they got a very high return on investment paying those fees, because she is, you know, she might nip around the edges and she'll use hot rhetoric against Wall Street. But the truth of the matter is she's not going to do anything that is terribly detrimental to Lloyd Blankfein or to anybody else on Wall Street.
This is what I've been asking a lot of our guests actually recently, because some people in banking are telling me that they're hearing privately from her camp that she's not going to do anything that she says.
I'd be shocked if that were true. I'm being facetious. I think.
But I mean, I don't know how the supporters sort of are okay with that. You know, it's like, are you lying then or are you lying now?
I don't think they're okay with it. I think that's why Bernie Sanders is doing so well.
Yeah.
And I think it's, you know, he's finally, I think, engaging in some political contact and some warfare by bringing up the speaking fees.
Yeah.
You know, and I think he's tapped into something that's very legitimate.
Morgan?
Lee, I don't know about you, but what I was most surprised about from the town hall last night is that she didn't have her response prepared for this. He's been hitting her on this for weeks. It's been really effective, especially in the last debate. For me, that was the most shocking part of the town hall, is I would have thought that her people would have had a canned response ready to go. I don't know about you, but that's
maybe there wasn't a good response. You know, sometimes when there's nothing to rehearse, when you don't have any lines, you don't have a script, it doesn't matter how much you rehearse because there's nothing to rehearse.
And there's this new pressure on Secretary Clinton to be more authentic and more off the cuff, and so maybe what she's trying to do there is trying to come across as more open and transparent, so to speak, and then you get a different answer.
Yeah, it was a bidding war. It was whatever they offered. That was very authentic.
Who do you think won in that town hall last night?
I think Bernie, to be honest with you, I think Bernie wins because I think he's connecting. I think Hillary has a terrific organization. She owns the Democratic power structure.
Right.
But he beat her in Iowa. I mean, let's face it. This is a candidate, Hillary Clinton, who is 50 points or nearly 50 points ahead.
Yeah.
Owned the Democratic power structure in Iowa. Tom Vilsack, you know, very, very close, who was former governor, very influential in the party, and she took it to a tie. And if you look at how she's performing with young people, I mean, the message that she's articulating, to the extent that there is one, is not resonating at all with anybody really under 30.
You're right. I mean, he's got this young people vote. Let me move on to this latest conflict between Dr. Ben Carson and Ted Cruz. Of course, Carson was on Deirdre Bolton's show last night, responding to the claims that Cruz's staff told voters Carson was dropping out of the race. Listen.
If, in fact, he agrees that this was a very inappropriate thing to do and certainly does not represent his values, then he needs to do something about it. If it does represent his values, he doesn't.
What do you think went on there, Lee?
Well, I think it's true when Trump and other people say that Ted Cruz will do anything he can to win, though I'm not sure that separates him from any other successful candidate, certainly presidential candidate. But you have to look at the fact that there was several thousand votes that separated Trump and Cruz. So even if they engaged in that, and let's face it, they probably did. I mean, you're talking about a bunch of caucus supporters that are not being recorded. They're not on, most of them are not on television. So, you know, who knows what they were spreading. There are probably a lot of other things that were said that the candidates wouldn't want broadcast nationally. But the upshot is, you know, Trump won by or lost by enough that nothing like that could have made.
But this is a smart play for the weight. Trump is not saying you did this to me. Trump's saying I'm doing this on behalf of poor Ben Carson. So I think actually it was a smart move by Trump to go after Cruz by saying I'm the defender of Ben Carson, who is probably easily the nicest guy in the race. I mean, it's like hitting a puppy.
I think the only problem with that is it's making a big deal out of something that voters do not care about. You talk about the ultimate in process. I don't think anybody in New Hampshire or in any subsequent state cares at all about what the Iowa caucus rules were or what rumors surrogates might have spread. You know, I think that's just a waste of time. You know, to me, Donald Trump's concession speech was better than Ted Cruz's victory speech. So he really came off of a high note there, and now he's obsessing and wasting time and boring voters and annoying voters.
Yeah, stages of grief are really coming out for Donald Trump. You see this kind of acceptance and then denial and then using Ben Carson in a lot of ways to question the results, which it seems are not going to be redigested, if you will.
No, there will not be a rematch. As much as he would like one, helpful as it might be.
But, you know, I mean, that whole idea that Ted Cruz could have stolen the election now, Donald Trump has put that out.
And it will make zero impact. And if he wastes any more time on that, he is not only is he not going to gain ground, he's going to lose ground. And I'll tell you another thing that struck me about the Iowa race and what political punditry has focused on is how powerful good old-fashioned television was in that race. I mean, Ted Cruz had the ground game, but Marco Rubio had the television game, the air game, and he dominated the television spot advertising leading up to the caucuses. And then he aired a 30-minute TV show in each of the major TV markets. So television was hugely responsible for how well Marco Rubio did.
But I think it's a little bit more than just television. I think Marco Rubio had a message, had a tone that conveyed to a lot of voters that going in that didn't want to go with the angriness of sort of the Trump-Cruz message. So television works, but I think Marco Rubio really caught wind, so to speak, with a message that also resonated a few days before the Iowa caucuses.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah. You've got to have a message, and you know, it's like the Edsel was very heavily advertised, but nobody wanted it. You've got to have a message. Rubio has the message. He's telegenic, and he produced good TV spots, and so did Bernie Sanders. You know, and having good commercials works, and authenticity sells. And I think both Rubio and Bernie have conveyed that authenticity, and it comes through, and they both produce television ads that conveyed that.
By the way, real quick, Clinton is postponing another financial services fundraiser. She's postponing fundraisers with BlackRock and Bain Capital because of this pressure, because she accepted the $675,000 from Goldman Sachs.
What you're seeing, too, is pressure in New Hampshire as well, and to stay in New Hampshire and campaign, because as of yesterday, there were no public events on the schedule for New Hampshire for both Bernie and Hillary Clinton. So we'll see how they adjust their strategies for the final vote.
All right, we'll leave it there. Lee, great to see you.
Great to be on.
Thank you so much for joining us. Come back soon. Lee Spieckerman there. Computer troubles, meanwhile, at the IRS. Right?